Going right for the gossip, Teak.
Well,
nice.
Yeah. Did you actually go on a date with him? That's what I want to know.
Okay, so the funny story was it was supposed to be a private video, so I had already known about him, but we kind of both agreed that, you know, like he was figuring out his football season and I was training for the Olympics, so we had FaceTime one time before very briefly in like May, and then he went to send me a private video because he didn't even have my number yet, and he gave it to someone else to give to me, and it somehow got leaked to Yahoo, and then it went viral. So the point of the video was actually very sweet of him. He wanted to send me like a private video instead of like getting my number without my permission and like just texting me.
Okay.
So it was actually sweet, but it ended up being everywhere. But we did go on a date. He's very sweet.
Well, but here's the thing, though, Teak. You position it as sweet. I might position it as a little creepy. A private video? I mean,
no. Like, well, I mean, like,
I'm kind of kidding, by the way.
Yeah. It wasn't the intention. He didn't know, and I didn't know it was going to be everywhere. It just was because it was at the Olympics. It just went crazy. Like it was insane. I'm saying, you know, in our generation, if he's not face to face with me, we don't have contact like that.
I got you.
To send a video instead of shooting a text and just saying, "Hey, what's up? Do you want to get dinner sometime?" Like I thought it was a nicer way and more genuine than just like shooting a text.
Hey, Teak, I'm not quite, and neither is Teak. We're not quite 20 years older than you, but we're old enough where I'm going to look at you like my little sister. So
Okay.
I typed in this young man's name. I've never seen what he looks like. Colton Underwood. Gonna hit enter, and if you were my little sister and this guy came, number one, he's big, so I'd probably have to let you go on the date because he probably kicked my ass. But you know what? Good-looking guy.
He
is a good-looking guy.
Yeah,
Okay, there you go.
And he's such a gentleman. He's the nicest
That's
guy
what
I've
counts.
ever met. Honestly, like he is the nicest guy I've ever met. So he's really great.
Okay.
You know, Aly, I don't want to be personal, but you're so committed to your craft. Yeah, I know we are. Sorry. My first
Right off
question
the bat.
was very personal. Hey, you go on a date with this guy? When's the marriage?
What was the third date like?
Are
Just
we
kidding.
invited? But you're committed to what your craft, and being a gymnast is not easy. There's the attrition in that world is amazing, as anyone can imagine, and most don't make it. It's probably worse than guys thinking they can make it to professional football or baseball or something like that. But it takes a lot of commitment, and you hear these stories about leaving home and going to train in these centers across the country. How do you lead a normal life when you're pursuing an Olympic dream?
You don't. I mean, I was lucky I didn't have to leave home. My gym was like 25, 30 minutes from my house, but all my workouts were in rush hour traffic. I'd start at 8:30, then go back at 5. So I was sometimes in the car for like it was like 3 hours some days going back and forth. So it was crazy, but I never had a social life growing up. I would go hang out with my friends sometimes, but I was always so tired, and I always wanted to look back and know that I gave it my all. So Saturday morning, I would have a workout in the morning, and I wouldn't have practice Saturday night or Sunday, but I was so tired from the whole week that I wouldn't even hang out with my friends, which when I look back now, I don't think of it as a sacrifice at all, because there's people that fight for our country. There's so many people out there that sacrifice so much more.
Oh, well
so it's
said.
not even
Well
not
said.
even that at all. It was so worth it to do that. I think that's what I had to do.
But it's tough to. That's a very interesting look at being young, and Tiki's right. I think you nailed it. The percentages of aspiring. I aspired to play pro baseball. I went as far as college. I wasn't even close. Tiki made it, obviously, but I think the numbers would support what Tiki said. I think it's tougher to make the Olympics on a specialized sport like you're in. But what you can't do is go back to being a kid and learn the interpersonal skills. So yet you seem so well adjusted. How did you make it work when you weren't really interacting with friends?
I think that, you know, I went to regular high school, which I think really helps. So I was able, that was sort of my idea of a social life. Just being in a class with kids in my class was a lot of fun. But, I mean, it was really, really, really hard and really challenging. I think there was times where I felt left out a lot of times because I would, like, see my friends, they're all hanging out on the weekends, and then I would just be at home. But I knew that I loved gymnastics so much, and it was something that my parents never told me to be that way. They actually encouraged me to go hang out with my friends and have a social life. But, you know, it's always the parents' job to support the kid. It's the coach's job to push the kid. So it wasn't like my parents were like, oh, you have practice on Monday, you can't hang out with your friends. They were never crazy like that. It just kind of came from me. I think, you know, it's interesting you said that. My dad looked it up. The odds of being an Olympic champion are 1 in 22 million.
What's the odds of being a 3-time Olympic champion?
I don't know. I have to look that. I have
1
to
in
look that
66
up.
million.
I don't know. I'm not
Wow.
sure, but I think it's just I just was like born with this desire. I wasn't born with this crazy talent. I just worked hard, but I was born with this desire and drive to just be the best and to work so hard at it. So I think that's where it came from.
Got to respect that. That is awesome. Aly Raisman in studio, 3-time Olympic hero. Did some other stuff and just really adjusted. Too bad you're not here, Tiki. I can already tell she's a great young woman. I've been around the 10 minutes. You can tell she's a piece of gold, no question.
Yeah, we had Carrie Strug back on in May, and we had a great conversation with her as well.
I don't think I've ever gotten to meet her. I know.
Oh, she's so fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
All you guys are like balls of energy. I guess you have to be. It's how you put yourself out there.
I feel like I'm an old lady. I don't have that much energy as much as I'd like to right now. If you give me about a year, I think it's going to take me a year to like recover, because after the Olympics, we went right away to New York. We did media. Then we went on a 3-month tour. So we were sleeping on tour buses in a different city every single day. And so, like, the fact that even Rio was exhausting and then coming home and going on tour right away, I think that I'm just, like, still recovering and still so tired that I'm usually bouncing off the walls. But I think, like, this summer I'll get all my energy back.
Wait till you get to your early 40s. You're going to be crawling out of bed. Aly, let me ask you this. The specialization of your not craft, but your amateur. Well, would I say craft because you don't get paid? Well, your Olympic prowess.
We get paid through sponsorship. So
True.
you really only get paid if you win a gold medal.
Okay. Your sport. I think it takes a lot of guts to go on Dancing with the Stars. Now, if you're not socializing with your friends, you're probably not dancing unless you're in your room dancing by yourself to Madonna, which I'm sure whomever, a lot of girls, I know my wife did that. So what was it like to be so great at something, even though you had to work for it, of course, with gymnastics, versus being so vulnerable to the rest of the world and not really knowing what to do?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because everyone always says, oh, Dancing with the Stars must have been so easy for you, because it's completely different. Dancing is completely different than gymnastics is. I've never done like a hip-hop dance. I've never done I can't even think of the dances off my head, like cha-cha, and there's the different
does
like
the cha-cha
waltz,
anymore.
the different
Cha-cha.
waltz like dances with. I've never danced with another partner, and in gymnastics, you're out there on the floor completely by yourself. And so I was dancing with Mark, and so when I'm training, I'm totally like vision tunnel. I can't hear anything. There could be kids screaming. I don't hear anything on the beam. And so when I was dancing with Mark, there was a time where I like hit him in the face because I wasn't aware of my surroundings. I'm not used to like being next to someone, so I had to learn to like watch him out of the corner of my eye, when gymnastics has taught me to not look in the corner of my eye and just think about what I'm doing. So that was really hard, because you have to be in sync with your partner.
You got to learn how to trust somebody.
Yes, yeah, it was very different than what I was used to, but I think it helped me kind of come out of my shell and a little bit more comfortable doing interviews and stuff.
There you go.
It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Aly, you won gold in team in 12, and you won gold on the floor in 12. You won gold, obviously, this year in team as well. But you got silver to Simone Biles in floor and all around. How amazing is she? And we talked about, or at least the narrative was she was just so dominant above everybody else. Is that actually the case?
Yes, she's so good. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where when I first came back to gymnastics, I think we were sort of like, we would always joke, with each other about who was going to win or who was going to beat who. And, of course, for me, coming back from such a great year in 2012, I took off 2 years off of competing. I took a full year off of gymnastics, then took a full year to train and come back. And so at first my mindset was, like, I was like, okay, of course I want to try to beat her. And then when I got to training and I saw her, I was like, okay, I think it might be very, 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 very hard for me to beat her. So I said, my goal is just to do the best that I can. If I can get a silver medal, like that felt like a gold medal to me. I knew that beating her in the all-around was going to be, nearly impossible. But I was like, in my heart, I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to win floor. Maybe we can tie. But then I realized very quickly that she was so good. And instead of getting upset or being a little baby about it, I completely respected her because she's just so good. And I think, in athletics, it's like people think that if you lose the Super Bowl or you lose the Stanley Cup or you get a silver medal or a bronze, it's not something to be proud of, and it is. I think when we watch the Super Bowl and the team that loses, they're like devastated on the sideline, which of course it's upsetting, but I think our world needs to take a step back and think they made it that far, like think about things a little bit more in a positive perspective, because when you think of them as little boys, if them thinking about the future, the fact they even made it that far is incredible.
That's an amazing perspective. Unfortunately, I know you have to run, and I want to give you a chance to pop Piercing Pagoda, which is what you're here for today, but The process, sadly, has been overlooked. The process of achievement. It's always
Yes.
about the finality of
Yes.
it. Did you win? Did you come in second?
Yeah.
Nobody has the time, quite frankly, based on the way our society's been
Yeah.
sped up, to appreciate the journey. And I think that that's
Exactly.
so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's even with everything today. I did an event with Reebok yesterday, and there was, some models and actresses there, and I think everyone looks at like models and actresses and maybe Olympic athletes like they're perfect, and the girls were saying like they don't see how many times we're told no before we get something, and they don't see how many times I've fallen in a competition, or how many times I've gone home from the gym crying in tears because it's just not coming together. There were certain skills that took me years and years to learn, and it took, maybe Simone a week to learn. So it's like everyone is different. Everyone goes at different paces, and that's okay. But you kind of just have to work and find your strengths and weaknesses, which sometimes it's frustrating, but like that's life. Gymnastics is such a hard journey. It's once every 4 years. Nobody pays attention to it. They just, except for the Olympics, they watch us once every 4 years. We're smiling, we're happy, but that's not how it is. And it's not just 2012, 2016. I started when I was 2, and I've loved it ever since. There were times when I hated it too, but I worked really hard at it.
That's a great reflection on the journey. It's Aly Raisman, 3-time Olympic champion. I know we got to run, but I was telling you, so back then I went to an all-boys private high school. I had to get an earring because everybody had earrings back then. And I went to Piercing Pagoda. My mom had to take me.
That's hilarious.
Because I wasn't 16. She had to sign a waiver. My dad's like, you're not getting it. Yeah, I'm going to get one, Dad.
Yeah.
And I walked around with a flesh-colored, most are flesh-colored Band-Aids. And I would have to turn away from my dean of discipline at high school so he couldn't see my ear.
See the side. Yeah, that's
but
awesome.
I got my first diamond stud at Piercing Pagoda. I know you're doing some stuff with them. I'm sure it's not that, but what do you have going on?
We'll get you a new earring then.
I actually still have the hole, and I got
it.
my wife, when we got engaged, I got her night, and I put it on, and I came out of the shower. I was pretending I was a rapper one night.
Yeah.
It actually worked.
That's
but that
awesome.
probably sounds weird,
That's
but it worked for
awesome.
me. But what do you have going on with Piercing Pagoda?
So Piercing Pagoda has a line with Heartful Hands. So it's a brand new collection, and it's all about, it's 2 hands coming together in a heart shape. So it's all about just spreading the love and respecting people, because I think that this generation really needs that. It's also something that, grandparents, moms, daughters, they can all share that. It's a great message for parents and grandparents to teach their kids, and just to spread the love, and to be, basically we were talking about with sports, be supportive. If you get second or third or your last place, doesn't matter. Just spread the love, be supportive. Not everything in life is always about winning.